The real question is, why are believers in the one camp, evolution, seeking to impose their faith on the other camp?
But in truth, all I had was blind faith in atheism.
You don't believe in a God. And so your kind of religion is you have no God.
And the evolution theory is the dumbest and most dangerous religion in the history of planet Earth.
How many times have you noticed the sheer irony in a creationist Christian claiming that atheism and evolution are religious beliefs carried by blind faith? Faith is, after all, one of the central tenets behind Christian gospel. It is therefore ironic when words like faith and religion are uttered with such arrogant derision, as if the theist actually has serious objections when people base their lives on these concepts. The irony is further compounded by the fact that evolutionary theory demands the total abandonment of faith in order to compellingly demonstrate its veracity. Atheism cannot be a religion, since atheism is, by definition, a rejection of religious beliefs. So what is it that drives people to perceive their own faults within the character of their adversaries, even to the point of denying those very same faults in themselves? Consider the following experiment. Go and get yourself some volunteers and give them a personality test. It doesn't actually have to be a good personality test, just convincing enough to make them think it's a good personality test. Tell them that the specific personality trait being measured is simply the tendency towards anger and hostility. Then, once the test is over, give your subjects a bogus computer printout of their results and tell them that they are perfectly normal with regards to their propensity towards anger and hostility. Next, haul your subjects off to a second and entirely unrelated experiment. This time, give them a short essay to read about an emotionally ambiguous man named Donald. Once finished, have them rate Donald on 14 personality traits on an 11-point scale. The actual personality traits themselves don't really make any difference, just so long as 3 of them are relevant towards anger and hostility. Finally, add up the total anger-hostility points given to Donald and average the results across your subjects. Given that the essay was emotionally ambiguous at best, it should then come as no surprise when Donald receives a mean hostility score of, say, 20-ish. Now, let's shake things up a bit. Instead of rigging your personality test to report perfectly normal levels for anger and hostility, rig it to report a strong above-normal score. Now that your subjects are feeling nice and self-conscious about their tempers, have them rate Donald on his personality, paying special attention to his anger-hostility scores. Surely, strong negative feedback would have no effect on the ratings of other people's personalities, would it? Wrong. As it turns out, subjects given high scores for anger and hostility will have a tendency to rate Donald slightly higher in his anger and hostility profile. Although the effect may not seem terribly dramatic, it is definitely statistically significant and consistently reproducible. This phenomenon is called psychological projection, wherein negative personality criticism causes that same critical trait to be more strongly perceived in other people. To make matters even more interesting, projection also has the added bonus of facilitating the denial of that very same criticism the subject receives. To see how, consider the following experiment. Just like before, give your subjects a bogus personality test. Only this time, let's rate them on dishonesty instead of hostility. After giving them their scientific proof of a repressed tendency for dishonesty, have them rate the personality of yet another emotionally ambiguous individual. Again, buried within the personality profile, be sure to include at least 3 traits related to honesty. Then, sit back and marvel once again as your subjects project their alleged dishonesty onto the ambiguous personality. Now, let's shake things up some more. After projecting their dishonesty, have your subjects fill out a questionnaire in which they evaluate themselves on 12 totally random characteristics. Just be sure that at least for one of the questions, the subjects are asked to evaluate themselves on their tendency to be dishonest. For subjects who receive a low value of negative feedback on their dishonesty, a perfectly normal average will be on the order of, say, 4.5. This will also be true for subjects who receive strong feedback but are not allowed to project any negative traits. The obvious question, therefore, is, will projection of negative traits onto strangers have any effect on how people self-evaluate their own dishonest tendencies? Surely, a few negative ratings about some emotionally ambiguous stranger would not affect our own self-perceptions, would it? Wrong! Interestingly, subjects who were given the opportunity to project their faults onto someone else actually reported lower scores for their self-evaluated dishonesty. Thus, at least in this context, Sigmund Freud was actually right. Psychological projection really does serve a defensive function by facilitating the denial of one's own faults. Legitimate criticisms effectively bounce off the mind of the believer and then stick to the people hurling the criticism. In short, defensive projection is like the "I am rubber, you are glue" of cognitive bias. So why is it that believers are so fond of referring to evolution and atheism in terms of faith-based religions? Is the entire field of evolutionary biology just a religious cult hell-bent on proselytizing its dogma? Is atheism really just another religion trying to gain converts? Or are these people just ordinary God-fearing folks attempting to deny their own inadequacies by projecting them onto others?
So atheism alone is no more a religion than health is a disease. One may as well argue over which brand of car pedestrians drive. Evolution is even less religious. It is the branch of biology that explains biodiversity. As such, it doesn't permit supernatural explanations, has no doctrines, nor dogma, nor fables with morals. It has no rituals, traditions, or holidays, nor either leaders or defenders of the faith, because it doesn't allow faith. It holds nothing sacred. There's no place of worship, no enchantments, no clergy, no fashion of garb. It neither promotes nor discourages belief in gods or souls. It says nothing about how we should live or what happens after we die. Evolution is therefore not a religion. And creationists know it's not, but they say it is anyway.